Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, and most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And what do I mean by that when I say that? I say that because I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice-a-week long-form podcast, because I want to talk to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve, so you can take that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. One of the many, many reasons why I proudly fly this American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. All right, we got Tuesday morning here, and it is the week's humming right now. You guys, freight's moving. There's a vibe out there, man. I can feel it. I can feel it. There's going to be big things happening here over Q4, and I'm really looking forward to it. Let me see here, you guys. Diesel it remains stagnant, but it's still at a staggering $4.59 a gallon nationwide out there. And I get that information from the EIA, EIA.gov. They send out that weekly update out there on the fuel prices. And I check it out, you guys, every single time, because it helps me price everything a lot more accurately when I know which direction fuel is heading, right? Because, you know, a lot of my book of business right now is out there in the spot market, right? It's that same day freight. It's that last minute stuff. And I got to stay on top of it. And that's one thing that I would say from a pricing perspective, you guys, it is really understanding where fuel is, how it's trending, what it looks like, because it gives you an idea on how things are really going to play out here throughout the end of the year, right? If fuel doesn't go down, if fuel stays as high as it is, this is going to have a drastic effect on price. And I think that it will inevitably, unfortunately, lead to a shortage in capacity, or starting that, because, like, you know, some of these companies are just hanging on by a thread right now. And then rising fuel costs is just going to, you know, and then if prices don't improve as well, and we're going to touch on this in one of the articles, how it hurts your overall pricing. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting end of the year, you know, and if you're out there, like I was saying, like me, and you're building your book of business through spot market, last minute opportunities, you don't have contracted rates in place, and you're really going out there, understanding where fuel is trending is very, very important to how you're pricing stuff, especially if you're out there pricing like a line haul plus fuel style of shipment out there. So it's going to be interesting to see, you guys, how the end of this year kind of shakes out. I'm really looking forward to it, because I think that there's a lot of opportunities that are coming. I'm an optimistic realist, as I talk about out there. And, you know, for me personally, I think that rates are going to, I think they're going to increase here throughout the end of the year. I really do. And I rely solely on my friends over at Green Screens for all that. You guys, every single shipment that I move inside of my brokerage is priced through Green Screens. So if you want the most accurate freight pricing and freight rates out there, you guys, hit them up, greenscreens.ai/the freight coach. Literally use them multiple times a day, every day. The load I'm picking up right now, currently on site at the shipper, guess how it was won? Just throwing that out there. But, you know, if once you factor that in there with fuel and everything else, it just helps you stay on top of where the market is and has a better understanding out there. Tracy St. Clair watching over on YouTube. Good morning to you. Thank you for tuning in. Bill McIntyre, good morning, everyone. Papa Freight, good morning, everyone. As always, time for the real news. I appreciate that. Corey Buchan, good morning to you. James Courier, what is up, my man? I actually got to meet James in person out in Houston, out at Freight Fest. He was out there. It was great to finally see him. He's been on the show a bunch of times, and it was good to finally meet him in person. Tony, I do not need drayage. Darnell in the house. Happy Freight Coach Tuesday. I appreciate you tuning in, Tony. Thomas Weirden, excuse me, Freight morning. Let's truck it up today. Yeah, man. I'm oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I can't get dinged for swearing if I say let's truck it up, right? Oh man, that's good. That's good. Oh, I love it. James, yeah, man. Let's go, baby. Yeah, so we got some articles here, but before we get into that, you guys, and then obviously we're going to talk about fuel prices and how it, with the rates and everything out there in the market, and then we're going to talk about what might be going on in the market here for the foreseeable future. And then also talking about a bankruptcy out there from a union of all things. So we got some interesting things to break down. Brand new episode of the podcast is available right now over on iTunes and Spotify, you guys. It was, I interviewed Clint Weston over at Shoreline Capital. They're out there providing factoring services for trucking companies. And, we really talked, it was a really good conversation because, Clint started his company back in 2019 and building it up over these last couple of days, couple of years, and dealing with all the other issues going on in the world and everything else. It's a good story. And then, he was one of the first people that I've heard as a business owner, as a factor. He was just like, hey, at the end of the day, I want to teach my clients to actually not have to use me long term. And which is interesting to hear that from a business owner, but I think it's a great plan, right? And I was talking to my friends over at Denim out at Freight Fest as well. And they said the same thing out there is like, they're really out there to look it up and build up to where their clients can utilize them to learn more of the financial side of things. And I think that there's got to be a big emphasis on that as a business owner, especially when you're starting it up and getting up and running, and having a financial partner is so crucial, right? And it might not be a factoring company. It might be your bank who you're utilizing, or, James Courier over at Finlock. That's another good guy you guys can hit up as well to talk about. You need to find financial partners to help you through this, because not everybody has VC funding or funding at all, right? In having that, because like shit, there's times, I'll just be real, I'm building everything, I'm bootstrapping everything. If I didn't make smart financial decisions in my business early on, from having a cash on hand perspective, and then also like getting some business credit cards, like I utilize credit cards for my company right now to take advantage of the cash back rewards, and then airline points and everything else that come along with it. As I go back and forth on that, but there's times that I have to, I have to utilize my credit card to front it, because, if my receivables start to age and everything else, I have to conserve my cash, because I have to pay my receivables in cash. I can't necessarily pay them with my credit card in all instances. So, again, it's balancing that out, but getting a better understanding of a financial operation, like the how to properly utilize your finances, is so crucial in business. So it's a really good episode to hit up. And I also have another one coming out in the coming weeks as well, with a guy who offers bookkeeping services. And again, we talked about a lot of this stuff, you guys, because I think that right now, with where we are in the market, and then, like, it's always needed information out there about how to utilize proper financing to grow your company, especially if you're out there doing it like me and bootstrapping it and making it happen. So we're going to be having a little bit of an emphasis on that here coming up, because at the end of the day, you need to better understand how your money works, and you got to understand how to make your money work for you and your business. But that being said, let's get around to some articles and let's break some Thomas says, I scream it all day long. I love that, man. Dude, you should make some t-shirts on that, Thomas. That'd be funny. All right, first article we're going to break down today. And as always, you guys, all the links to these articles that I break down on the live show, I upload on the Freight Coach YouTube channel, and also the Coffee with the Freight Coach audio only replay of this, which is going to be available on iTunes and Spotify almost immediately after the show. And then also another reminder, Friday's show is Q&A day. I had a guy drop a question in the comments yesterday, and I'm going to be breaking that down, as well as the other ones that I get via DM throughout the week. So if you have any questions for sales and operations related for the transportation industry, I'll answer them live on Friday's show, and hats and shirts coming soon. Get it, Thomas? I love it. So I love capitalism, man. Create that business and make it happen. Let's go. All right. First article we're going to break down, freightwaves.com. ILWU Dock Workers Union files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Interesting. I didn't know a union could file for bankruptcy, to be honest with you. When I saw this article, it was interesting because I was only under the impression that actual businesses could create or could file for bankruptcy. And I mean, you pay your union dues, but I mean, so that considers revenue. But what's your product at that point? I don't know. I'm truly interested in this. Obviously, I am not the most pro union person, but if you have some more information on this, on how a union can file for bankruptcy at all, I would love to have you come on the show and talk about it. Again, I'm not here to throw knives in any gotcha moments. I just want to have a better understanding of how some of this stuff works. Anyways, the International Longshore and Warehouse Union, which represents dock workers at ports along the Pacific coast, filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection just before midnight on Saturday. It will continue to operate as usual throughout the restructuring process, the union said in a statement on Sunday morning. It plans to continue honoring its employees and payroll obligations in ordinary course of business. The bankruptcy is driven by long-running legal dispute. The bankruptcy filing was precipitated by a massive damage award and ongoing litigation in a long-running dispute between the ILWU Local 8, the union chapter in Portland, Oregon, and terminal operator of the ICTSI Oregon. In November of 2019, a jury found that the union engaged in unlawful practices from 2013 to 2017, including work stoppages, slowdowns, and safety gimmicks and other coercive actions. Interesting. After a 10-day trial, the jury awarded $93.6 million in damages to the ICTSI, which, if enforced, was expected to push the ILW into bankruptcy. The jury found that the ILW National was responsible for 55% of the damages, and Local 8 was responsible for 45%. In March of 2020, Oregon Judge Michael Simon dramatically reduced the amount due, ruling that the damages should not exceed $19.1 million. Wow, that's a drastic drop. The two sides are currently filing briefs regarding the final extent of damages. The ILWU argued that its damages are non-existent or minimal, at most $3.9 million. The ILW filed financial documents as part of its voluntary Chapter 11 petition in the Northern District of California, listing current assets at $11.6 million, including $9.5 million in cash, far below the maximum amount of the judge's ruling. In the letter sent to the union chapter on Sunday, the management said that it had been prepared to find a way to pay the $19.1 million at the time of the 2020 ruling, but the ICTSI rejected the reduced damages, so the new trial was scheduled. The ICTSI is seeking $48 million to $142 million in damages. Unfortunately, the ILW cannot afford to continue to litigate this case. And it goes on to say that ILW responds to scorched earth litigation tactic. According to the president, Willie Adams, while we have attempted numerous times to resolve the decade-long litigation with this, at this point, the union can no longer afford to defend its scorched earth litigation tactic. And we intend to use Chapter 11 process to implement a plan to bring this matter to a resolution. And the officers are confident that we are taking the right steps. And it goes on to say to the members that we want to ensure that the ILW is operating business as usual. Our bankruptcy filing is not a liquidation or what is often thought of when you hear the word bankruptcy. This is interesting, right? Like, all things considered, one of the lines that stuck out to me was why, it was, and they found that the union had engaged in unlawful practices over a 4-year period, including work stoppages, slowdowns, and safety gimmicks and other coercive actions. That is the most unkept secret that's out there, that union workers do this across the board, right? Like, this isn't just at this one port. And again, I personally think that an outside entity that can stop performing at an actual place of business is like, I just think it's messed up. I think it's messed up to its core. And, again, I understand why people act in the manner that they do, but like, as a business owner myself, this is one of those situations where it's just like the union has zero skin in the game, right? Like, let's be honest, the union is only a thing because of the dues that the members pay. That's the only reason they have any revenue at all. They don't have a product or a service or anything. And I look at it like this. If the unions wanted to build the perfect utopia, and again, I'm not about people underpaying their and under compensating their people at all. I want to be very, very clear about that. But I feel like the union, with us being a free market, that is the United States, and capitalism, which is a beautiful, beautiful system, the union should just start their own port or start their own trucking company and compete in the free market like the rest of us. Then go out there and show everybody how you can pay everybody what you always fight for. And, like I'll use the UPS contract, for example, $170,000 in total compensation, and show everybody how you can do it as a private business, compete on the open market with those rates and still find customers. I just look at it like this. The union, in my opinion, has a very amazing opportunity to go out there and create their own business and compete at that level. It's the free market. It's a beautiful system. Capitalism is great. When done right, I believe in responsible capitalism. I want to be very, very clear about that. But they should do that. And instead of this, because now what's going to happen? I didn't even know that a union could file for protection or bankruptcy protection, because I thought that actually had to be a real business with real revenue and everything coming through. And I guess that you could say that the members' dues are revenue. But again, I don't want to see anybody lose their job with this. But I think that the unions are very, very known for just blaming other people for situations. So this is a great opportunity to start your own business and do your own thing. That article, freightwaves.com, ILWU dock workers union files for bankruptcy protection. Again, I don't want anybody to lose their jobs or anything like that, but those charges, and then especially having it be proven in court in the state of Oregon, which we all know which way that leans and which way that the union leans from a political affiliation process, that says a lot. That says a lot about that ruling. So anyways, you guys, on to the next article. As Jay-Z says, on to the next one. Steve Hunt, what's going on, man? Thanks for tuning in. This article is also from FreightWaves. Fuel price jump boosts rates, but threatens trucking capacity. Spot rates rise is not indicative of a tighter market. The average retail price went up. It has increased 16% since the end of July, the largest and fastest increase since October of last year. And we've talked about that every single week, how it's up like some 70 cents a gallon over that time period from July. Rising diesel prices have propped up truckload spot rates in September, masking their decline toward the end of the quarter. Looking at the average spot rate for dry van loads represented by the National Truckload Index, rates increased around Labor Day and are looking to finish the month ahead of where they started. Removing the total estimated cost of fuel from that number, spot rates are actually trending lower, which is unusual for the end of third quarter. I don't think that's unusual for the end of third quarter at all. Again, take this for what it's worth. I've just been in the trenches for 3 total days, but the end of Q3 is historically very slow. After Labor Day, between Labor Day and Q4, it's not, at least in my experience, again, take it for what it's worth, it slows down before there's normally a high-rise holiday push that goes on out there. But this could accelerate the amount of capacity exiting the market, shrinking the timeline companies have to enjoy historically loose transportation environment. And, and that's what I had said earlier in the show is with fuel continuing to go up, I hope that that's not the thing that pushes capacity out of the market here, because, people are so much closer to it flipping and being better again from a pricing perspective than not at this point. It goes on to say that demand has been on the rise over the past several months. The total number of tender shippers and requests for capacity are up 15% over since April. The rise in demand has a negligible impact on carrier availability as national rejection rates remain in the deflationary zone below 4%. And again, we all know how the spot market and contracted freight is blended out into. People are accepting those rates because they're making more money in contract than they are over spot. Let's call it what it is. Most people reject loads when they're not able to make as much money on them, and they'll rather go out to the spot market. Anyways, back to the article. Capacity has tightened slightly over this period. The takeaway is that there is still not enough freight to support the available capacity, and sharply rising fuel prices will only make the environment more challenging for carriers, especially ones who rely on spot market volumes. It is difficult to pass fuel costs along quickly onto the spot market since carriers are bidding against one another on the open market. Many shippers expect last week's rate to be the baseline. In a loose capacity environment, it is difficult to raise rates even when your costs are rising. The bottom line is that the carriers' costs have risen quickly, and the market does not allow for price in a market that does not allow for price increases. And this will exacerbate the existing trend for carrier exits out there. For shippers, it's only one more reason to prepare for a tighter market in 2024. Even if demand does not hold, the rate of capacity exit will eventually catch up. I don't disagree with the fact that rising fuel costs are going to definitely continue to put a it's going to tighten the chokehold on some of these carriers. It really is. It's inevitable, which it sucks to see. And I hate seeing people go out of business. And again, I will continue to say this. I'm not telling you how to run your company, but do everything in your power to keep moving at whatever it takes, right? Because things are going to be challenging. Things are always going to be challenging, whether if the market's up or not. Things are going to be challenging. And if you want it bad enough, there is still a way to make it work. All right. I know it sounds a lot easier said than done, but it is very, very true. You are closer to things changing than not. And I also look at it like this. Rates are going to inevitably rise. Okay. It is going to happen. It is typical economics, you guys. Ebbs and flows, which are the freight market, and rates are going to increase here. It just is going to happen. It's Q4. It might not be a drastic increase, but again, I would look at it like this. If you are in a market where you are sitting for longer than you should, again, relook at your business plan, relook at your business strategy. If you're not following a guy by the name of Adam Wingfield, you need to. He is all about this stuff, and he talks about this. He is the voice for the small carrier out there, in my opinion. So it's like, for me, get out there and really push to find that consistent business. Introduce yourself to every shipper in your backyard that ships whatever trailer you have, reefer, drive in, flatbed. Go out there and introduce yourself to everybody to try and preserve this, because shippers are always looking for quality providers, no matter what is going on out there. All right. Third and final article we have here today is from truckingdive.com. Freight turnaround might take until 2025, says some analysts out there. Higher interest rates and tepid spending are dragging down long-term forecasts. And this is what speakers said at the JOC's Inland Conference. Carriers optimistic that the freight market was starting to show signs of a turnaround should prepare for weak conditions to linger, possibly into late 2025, analysts say. Behind the bleak forecast was weak U.S. economic data shared during the Inland Distribution Conference. Saturated retail inventories, rising interest rates, and elevated costs continue to weigh on freight markets' ability to recover. We're on a downward path, says Paul Bingham, a director of economics and country risk transportation consulting for S&P Global. Really, if we're going to get into any recovery in terms of the overall economy, it's not going to take place until 2026. A bright spot in the analyst prediction, however, is that the U.S. economy will not fall into a recession this year. Instead, growth will be slow. And consumer spending complicates bleak forecasts out there. While carriers still face a freight recession, some positive signals are emerging. The Federal Reserve's efforts to curb domestic inflation have some impact on consumer spending, and not enough to tip the country into a full recession. I know that they didn't raise interest rates here recently, but I think that was only a 30-day pause. I wouldn't be surprised if they raise interest rates next month. The spending patterns have led retail inventories to start normalizing. Again, but higher costs for assorted consumer staples, including fuel and food, as well as rising interest rates on everything from credit cards to car loans and mortgages, will further hinder spending. If consumers aren't buying that means that manufacturers aren't producing. And then it goes on to say that there's no rebound coming in terms of reversion on the online spending that was out there. And yeah, I mean, I think we're all affected by gas prices being what they are. I mean, shit, the gas station by my house is $5 a gallon right now. Grocery prices are up, everything's up, right? So it's like I think a lot of people out there are going to be looking like, where am I going to spend my money? And I think that everyone eliminates discretionary spending right away. It's always got to go into where it matters most, right? And your food and your bills and everything. But again, I mean, I was on the road last week and airports were packed still, right? The airport in Phoenix, Houston, and San Diego, they were all packed. All my flights were booked, fully booked, everything. So again, it's just like it's almost like a tale of two things where you see data being reported in one direction, and then you're out there in the real world and you're like, it doesn't look like anything's slowing down. But again, if you pay attention to the credit card debt, it is rising at a very, very high speed. And people are defaulting on those, as well. But yeah, it is, and then, talking about a more typical peak season to kind of tie in this article here, Larry Gross, who is a founder of Gross Transportation and Consulting, that the peak season will be normal when compared to historical trends. And Gross specializes in intermodal services, said peak in intermodal occurs in the last week of September. And then Gross's forecast reinforced pessimistic messaging shared by trucking executives who spoke at Deutsche Bank's 2023 transportation con that was out there. And let me see here. Looking ahead, Bobby Holland, Vice President of Director of Freight Analytics at U.S. Bank, says he is watching for improvements in new home construction for signs that the economy will turn around the corner. And then we know that interest rates are still high, and that housing starts housing starts are at their lows. And when you couple that with minimal housing inventories in some areas, we're watching to see whether this continues to suppress freight. And I think that is a great market indicator, to their point, is new home construction and everything else. And, again, I'm in the flatbed world, and I'm seeing it's tighter to get into certain shippers right now. But at the end of the day, I think that, that's one of those big key economic indicators to look out for, is new housing in construction and everything else. And I don't think that we're seeing the Infrastructure Investment Act payouts, and stuff with that, the financials that were allocated to obviously the infrastructure of our country, which is roads, bridges, and airports and stuff like that. But again, it's going to be interesting to see. I think that a lot of us who are in the day-to-day are more focused of, how do I just find business right now to keep my business going? And again, we always have to look at what more can we do to become a better service provider as a whole, no matter what. And it's always going to start with communication. And, if you're a trucking company, it's knowing the lanes that you're running, owning your backyard, and same thing as a broker, own your backyard, own those local commodities, and get out there and just put yourself out there no matter what. That article, truckingdive.com, freight turnaround might take until 2025. I don't agree with that sentiment at all. And that's just based on what I'm seeing with my current customers and the current spot market activity that's going on out there, and the conversations that I'm having. But again, that's just my opinion. That's just like my opinion, man. Name that movie. But anyways, you guys, that's going to be it. Yeah, Thomas, it was the perfect storm out there. Steve Hunt, yeah, companies are still getting out there and attending trade shows. Pikachu, good morning to you watching over on YouTube. That may or may not be my son, who's on break right now and is tuning into the show. And I hope this means that you got your reading done already, buddy, because if you haven't, you should shut this off and go pick up your book. Anyways, you guys, that's going to be it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. I got a guest coming on tomorrow. We're going to break down something that broke last night about some litigation out there in the industry, so you guys know who that is probably going to mean. It's going to be on the show, but that's going to be it. As always, if you guys got value in what you heard here today, subscribe to the show. Get it out there. Share it out there to your network, because at the end of the day, if you see value, your network's going to see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys, and we'll be talking to you soon.